All right, now this is a really interesting one. This is an interesting one right here. This is from the Ring magazine, and it's with regards to Chris Eubank Jr. and Frank Warren. We obviously know there's no love loss. I think that's the best way to say it between the two of them. And they were together at a press conference for Peterborough Bill 1, and Chris Eubank Jr., well, in fairness, it wasn't just aimed at Frank Warren, it was aimed at pretty much everybody, except Turkey al-Sheikh and to an extent Ben Shalom. He aimed a big rant at all the promoters. Frank Warren, though, in particular, was not best pleased. And just before I get into this article, just if you haven't already, I'll ask at the start now, please hit the subscribe button. The subscribe button is literally there. So if you're watching this video for the first time and you haven't hit subscribe, man, it literally takes 2 minutes, man. I pretty much do a video every day on boxing news. So there you go. To read this joint statement from Frank Warren and Chris Eubank Jr., and I'll give my 2 cents on it then. It says, and I quote, Frank Warren and Chris Eubank Jr. confirmed that the defamation proceedings against Chris Eubank Jr. have been settled amicably. With those proceedings now settled, both Frank Warren and Chris Eubank Jr. look forward to a positive professional relationship in the future. So, joint statement, short and sweet, and amicably settled. Okay, look forward to a professional relationship in the future. So let's dissect this and give my 2 cents, I should really be saying, on this. So the first thing that came to mind, now again, I said at the start of this video before I go in, Frank Warren really was not happy with Chris Eubank Jr. when he made those remarks at that press conference. Now it appeared Turkey al-Sheikh got both the guys, slammed their heads together, and they all made up. And I believe Chris Eubank Jr. did apologise either on the day or the very next day. It wasn't long. So he did, say, look, apologies, this, that, and the third. We all thought that was the end of it. It was all good to go and that was fine. But just before Christmas, I believe, I think it was actually just after Usyk Fury 2, Frank Warren announced that he was going down the legal road with this, as he so often does with certain cases like this. But now it's settled. So that leads me to believe that potentially they've settled out of court, i.e. Chris Eubank Jr. has had to put his hand in his pocket again. If it is the case, boy, it's been an expensive 2025 for him, between the fines for the egg, between the rehydration, or between the weigh-in, which he missed the 160 fines, and potentially having to pay, and I say potentially because we don't know, right? Potentially having to pay Frank Warren for that. It's been an expensive last 6 months for Chris Eubank Jr., if in fact that is the case. But the interesting part there is we look forward to a professional relationship, a positive professional relationship in the future. So that could potentially mean that Chris Eubank Jr. and Frank Warren plan on working together, or certainly working with Chris Eubank Jr. in as much as, Ben Shalom was with Chris Eubank Jr., Frank Warren has one of his fighters that Chris Eubank Jr. fights. Now, as far as we're aware, the Conor Benn fight is going to happen next, the rematch, right? But let's just say both guys decide, you know what, Chris Eubank Jr. is 168, Conor Benn's 154, 147, right smack bang in the middle, either or. Then you're kind of like, well, what happens then? If he goes to 168, Hamza Sheeraz has a fight lined up, so it's probably not going to be him. Although Frank Warren has a couple of middleweights like Nathan Heaney, Denzel Bentley. Has he got anyone else? I mean, Brad Pauls, but you're talking about a pay-per-view star essentially in Chris Eubank Jr. No disrespect to the likes of Denzel Bentley and people like that, but that's not, it just isn't. It's not pay-per-view material. But then, as I was reading through this, I was like, well, hang on a minute. It says the future. So, what was it wasn't Frank Warren. I believe it was Billy Joe Saunders. There's that name there. What was he talking about last week? Well, he was talking about potentially coming back in September, having a tune-up fight, talking about coming back with Frank Warren promoting him, and talking about a certain Chris Eubank Jr. Now, again, for me, that fight, truthfully, at this point in Chris Eubank Jr.'s career, with the exception of a Conor Benn rematch, that's probably the biggest payday, or potentially a Canelo fight, but let's just focus on the immediate. That potentially is the biggest payday he can actually get this year, with the exception of Conor Benn. It really is. And Billy Joe Saunders saying that he's seriously considering a comeback now. I mean, he's been saying that for the last couple of years. He's always kind of teased that he'll come back. He never has. He is looking huge. He's looking massive, like really big, not in a good way. So he'll need a lot of work to get back down to, he's talking about 175 pounds. I mean, I don't even know if he can do that, to be honest with you. But if he comes back in September, and then potentially we have Eubank Jr maybe not facing Conor Benn, potentially there you go. You have Boxer versus Queensberry. Billy Joe Saunders with Frank Warren, Chris Eubank Jr with Ben Shalom. And then they're working together. You know, he's not working with Frank Warren as a promoter, you know, Frank's my promoter, Chris Eubank Jr, but he is on a Queensberry, he'll probably be on a Queensberry show, you would imagine, or a Riyadh season, just something like that. And that does make a lot of sense. Now, again, that's just me thinking outside the box here. I'm just putting two and two together, and, you know, I could be coming up with flipping 1,400 in, you know, with that one. But it does kind of make a little bit of sense to me with just the wording of it there and everything. Or it could be the first one. It could just be that Frank Warren has said, I don't know this for a fact, that, you know, we're going out to court. Chris Eubank Jr is like, okay, you got me. How much do you want to just make this go away? We'll kiss and make up. We'll shake hands. That's the end of it. So it's probably one of the two. Yeah, look, I don't think anyone really had any gripe with what Chris Eubank Jr was saying with regards how promoters can be with regards fighters. You know, that's boxing. It's a dog eat dog world in the ring and outside the ring in the boxing world. But you know the way some people are, and yeah, Chris Eubank Jr, he didn't, even though he apologised, Turkey seemed to, you know, bash their heads together and say it's all good. Clearly wasn't. So it's all sorted now. Has it been that Chris Eubank Jr had to put his hand in his pocket again, or is it that Frank Warren is looking at maybe bringing Billy Joe back and leading towards a Chris Eubank Jr fight in the future? Again, without Conor Benn, I think Billy Joe pays the most money, and right now, even if Billy Joe Saunders could get himself back to 175 pounds, which he's no business at that weight. He was not even the biggest middleweight in the world, certainly not a super middleweight. I think it's a foregone conclusion Chris Eubank Jr wins. Because is Chris Eubank Jr at his peak? No, but he's been active, in shape. Billy Joe Saunders has got to be 240, 230 thereabouts. He's big, so it's not straightforward losing all that weight and just, you know, hitting the ground running, especially considering the fact that Billy Joe will still have to make a weight. If he was a heavyweight, you'd say, whoa, look, he's way out of shape, but look, bring the weight down, you can fight at whatever weight you want, you don't have to cut the weight. He'll have to actually make a championship weight, you would imagine, to come back. So that's going to be that's probably the killer right there. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Eubank Jr, Frank Warren, apparently kissed the mate up. Let me know your thoughts. Hope you enjoyed it. Please, if you could, hit subscribe, hit the like button, all of that good stuff. Until next time, people. Peace.